Hello and welcome back to app development. All right, so today we're going to start our second lab. And the big thing that we're going to add today is starting to look at the canvas. All right, and the canvas is going to be pretty essential for any type of game that we want to build because the canvas allows us to not just click on buttons, but drag things and swipe and flick and all those other motions that you can do on a smartphone that are pretty important when trying to design or create some sort of game. All right, so that's kind of where we're headed with this. So if you go to App Inventor and you click Start New Project, as usual, you can call this anything you want. I'm going to call it Paint Lab. Again, pick your own name, but I'm just going to call mine Paint Lab. And we're going to get a blank phone. And we're going to start just by kind of putting some stuff together here. All right, so we're going to build the first part together so that we can talk about the canvas. And then after that, there's going to be things that you add to this during the lab. All right, but for the part that we're going to do together, we're going to start with a layout. And we're going to get a horizontal arrangement. All right, so we've got our horizontal arrangement right there. I'm going to leave the height at automatic, but I'm going to change the width over to fill parent so that it takes up the entire width of the screen. And then I'm going to change the align horizontal to center. So that's going to automatically center anything that I put inside of that horizontal arrangement. All right, now what am I going to put inside of that horizontal arrangement? I'm going to put 3 buttons. All right, 1, and you'll notice that it instantly gets centered because I clicked centered on the previous horizontal arrangement. And I'm going to change the text on that button to red. This is going to be our red button. And then to further accentuate that, I'm going to change the background color of that button so that it is also red. All right, so I've got my red button. I'm going to do the same thing, only this is going to be my green button. All right, and again, this is for the different colors for our little painting app that we're going to build together here. I'm going to change this to green, and then I'm going to add a third button that is going to be the blue button. So at the start, our app is going to have red, green, and blue as our color choices. All right, so there's my red, there's my green, there's my blue button. All right, next thing I'm going to do is actually add the canvas. All right, so if I go to drawing and animation, all right, it's the second one down, it's a canvas. I'm going to drag this in. All right, now I'm going to once again set the width to fill parent so that it automatically takes up the size of the screen. The height I'm going to set to 50%, which should take up about half the screen, because throughout the lab we are going to be putting some stuff underneath the canvas. So right now I'm going to put it at 50%. And then let's see, everything else we can leave for right now. Let me just make sure there's nothing else there. Yep, everything else we can leave for right now. And then underneath that, we're going to get another horizontal arrangement. So again, that's in this layout section. We're going to get another horizontal arrangement. We're going to once again set that to width fill parent. And we're once again going to say align horizontal to center. So anything that I put in there is centered. And then to that horizontal arrangement, I'm going to add a single button. All right, you're going to be adding more later on, but right now we're just going to add this single one. And I'm going to change the text to clear. Okay, so first things first, before we start talking about code or anything else, this app is going to have multiple buttons, not as many as the calculator, but still multiple buttons. So it's a good idea to give them names so that when you're writing the code, you know which one you're dealing with. So I'm going to call this first one my red B for red button. I'm going to call the second one my green B, so that I know that's the green button. I'm going to name this third one blue B, so that I know it's my blue button. And then button 4 here, I'm going to rename and just call that the clear B, so that I know that's my clear button. All right, so now when I'm writing the code, it'll be easy to know which button goes with which. All right, so the horizontal arrangements, I'm not going to bother renaming because we're not going to be writing any code that actually manipulates those. So I'm just going to leave those horizontal arrangement 1, horizontal arrangement 2. All right, so that's all that we're going to do right now in the design view. All right, in the lab, you're going to be doing more. But since that's all we're doing right now, I'm going to start up my emulator. And I'm actually going to pause the video so we don't have to just sit here and wait for my emulator to load up. And then I'll start the recording back up once it's loaded. Okay, so I'll be back in a second. Oh, the loading doesn't seem to want to work, so I guess we're going to just keep recording, and I'll talk a little bit about what this app is going to do. All right, so this app is going to be sort of just like a painting app, and we're going to use this canvas just to like be able to paint and make dots and draw lines and change colors and kind of just interact with this canvas here. All right, we're not actually going to have any like sprites or objects on it yet. That'll come in the next lab. But this is just going to kind of get us used to the canvas. We're going to see what sort of events and properties it has. And then that'll kind of lead the way for some of the more game-like apps that we're going to start after this. All right, so let's see how our emulator's doing. All right, it's making progress, so we're getting there. Let me see. If I switch tabs, I might be able to actually pause it. So let's try that. All right, so it should be obvious that the pause worked because now we have my loaded emulator. So right now, all I have is a clear button. I have this red button, the green button, and the blue button, but obviously they don't actually do anything yet. All right, so let's talk about the canvas. So I'm going to head over to the blocks here. All right. And if I go to my menu on the left and I click on the canvas, we're going to see all sorts of new events that we didn't have access to before. So there's when canvas dragged. So with this, we're going to be able to sort of drag things around on the canvas and detect when that happens. So that's going to be useful when we start doing games. Flung is basically when you like use your finger to flick the canvas. So that's also going to be pretty useful. And then when we can also know when you touch the canvas, we can know when you lift your finger off the canvas. And this is just another single touched event where this breaks it down to touch down and touch up. This is just touched in general. So these are all the different events that we can start using with the canvas. And a lot of those are going to become very helpful when we actually start working on our games and stuff. As far as the purple blocks go, this will just clear any writing that's on the canvas. This would allow us to draw an arc. This would allow us to draw a circle, draw a line, draw a point, draw a shape, draw text at an angle, get background color, get pixel. So there's all sorts of purple events that are going to allow us to draw and paint on the canvas. And we're going to use a lot of those in this lab. And then there's all sorts of properties. We can set the background color of the canvas. We can set the background image. So if you wanted like a wallpaper, font size, height, line width, paint color, text alignment, visible, invisible, width, percent, all those types of things, we're going to be able to change regarding our canvas. So there's a lot here that we can do way more than when we were just like dealing with a button or something like that. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is let's just talk about, we'll do a draw line. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to get an event, and the event is going to be when canvas dragged. All right, so this event triggers, and if you kind of hover over it, you can see it. It basically triggers when somebody drags their finger over the canvas. So it says when the user does a drag from one point to another, the start XY indicates the first point they touched, and then after that, it keeps detecting like where their finger moves. All right, so we're going to use this. And then inside of that, we're going to go back to the canvas, and we're going to get this purple block that says draw line. All right. Now, for those of you that, have taken geometry, or just even if you think about it, to draw a line, you need to have 2 points. So that's what this is asking for. It wants to know the XY coordinates of the first point, and it wants to know the XY coordinates of the second point. So you can think of this canvas as basically a big XY grid. The top left corner is 0, 0. So the top left corner of my canvas is 0.00. And then as I go over, my X gets bigger. And as I go down, my Y gets bigger. So the bottom right corner would have the largest X and the largest Y. And then the top left corner would be 0, 0. So what we're going to do, when we draw a line, we're not actually drawing one continuous line. We're going to be drawing lots and lots of little lines that are all connected together. So when you have an event that has these little sort of pinkish orange blocks above them, this is data that the event is collecting. All right, so this is the drag event. And when this event triggers, it starts collecting information. It collects the first place that you touched, then it stores the previous place that you touched, and then it also stores the current place that you touched. It also detects if you're dragging a sprite, but we don't need to worry about that right now because we don't have any sprites. So what we're going to do is we're going to hover over this previous X, and you're going to see that it's basically a variable, all right? And it has the 2 variable blocks that we're used to, get and set. So we're going to get previous X and plug it into X1. We're going to get previous Y, plug it into Y1. We're going to get current X, plug it into X2. And we're going to get current Y. Whoops. So I just hover over that and plug that in here. So what this is doing is it keeps drawing tiny little lines from X1, Y1 to X2, Y2 as you move your finger. So as I move my finger, it looks like I'm drawing one continuous line here, but I'm actually drawing lots of tiny little lines that are just connected in a row. So each time I drag my mouse, that event is triggering, and it just keeps updating the previous X and the previous Y and the current X and the current Y. And every time I move my mouse, it draws a tiny little line, and it makes it look like it's one big line, but it's actually just lots and lots of little lines. That same idea of programming, everything gets broken down into little steps. Same thing when we're drawing a line here. It's not one big line, it's lots and lots of little lines. All right, so that's kind of how this drag event works, but it can detect when you start, like, hold your mouse down and drag across it. If this was an actual phone, if we took our finger and dragged across it, it would work the same way. And it just keeps detecting where your finger moves, and then we're feeding those into this draw line event to actually mark up the canvas. Now, I just made my canvas a mess, so it probably would be useful to get the clear button working. So I'm going to go over to clear B. I'm going to click on clear B, I'm going to go up to this top event, when clear B clicked. I'm going to drag it over. And then I'm going to go back to the canvas. So I'm clicking back on canvas 1. And there's a purple block that says call canvas clear. And this will allow me to just erase anything that I've written on the canvas. All right, so ta-da, it's all gone. All right, next thing we're going to do is, well, let's change the colors next. No, we'll make our dots next. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make dots. So in our little painting app here, we're basically going to be able to make lines and dots. So for the dots, we're going to use the event when canvas touched. All right, so this is not when somebody drags along the canvas. It's basically when they just poke the canvas and then let go. Now, again, this is recording information. It's going to record the XY location of where the user actually touched the canvas. It also records whether or not you touched a sprite, but again, we don't have any sprites, so we don't have to worry about that right now. So we're going to go back into the canvas. This time, instead of getting draw line, we're going to get draw circle. Now, for the circle, you need to know where the center of the circle is, and then you need to know the radius so that they know how big to make the circle. And then you have to choose whether or not you want it to be filled or not filled. We're going to have it be filled. And then as far as the center X and center Y goes, we're going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to hover over the X. It's going to tell me to get X. I'm going to plug that in here. I'm going to hover over the Y. It's going to tell me to get Y. I'm going to plug that in there. And then for right now, we're just going to set the radius to 5. All right, you're actually going to be changing that in the lab so that it is a variable and that it can go up and down. But for right now, we're just going to plug in a 5 for this demonstration. All right, so now if I go up here and I click, every time I click, it makes a dot. And then if I drag, it makes a line. And then if I go back to clicking, it makes a dot. So the phone can differentiate between when you're dragging your finger across the canvas and when you're just touching the canvas and then letting go. All right. And then again, I can hit clear to erase all of that. So last but not least, we're going to get this red, green, and blue button working. So I'm going to go back to my code window here. I'm going to get the 3 events. Actually, I'm just going to get one, and I'll probably copy it. That's probably the easier way to do it. So here's my red button event. I'm going to go back to the canvas. And you're going to see there's a dark green property that says set paint color. All right, so that's the one that I want. Dark green, canvas 1, dot paint color. Remember, if you grab any dark green, you can always just go to the drop-down menu and change it that way. And then I'm going to go to the left-hand side here, and I'm going to go to the color menu. Now, they do have just certain colors built in, black, white, red. I don't know what that one is. Pink, maybe. And then they also have this block that lets you make a custom color. Now, for this one, I could just drag in the red block, but I want to talk about this make color block because you are going to be using this inside of the lab. So the make color block is based on how computers generate color. So your computer screen is made up of tiny little pixels or tiny little sort of dots. And the image that you're seeing is just lots of little dots displaying a specific color. And that color that it displays is made up of 3 parts. It's made up of red light, green light, and blue light. All right. And we always do it in that order. Red is first, green is second, blue is third. And by combining those lights in different intensities, we can create different shades of color. So, for example, if you combine red and blue, you're probably going to get a purple shade, some sort of purple shade. And each of these can range from 0 to 255. So 0 would mean I don't want any red. 255 would mean I want full red. 120 something would mean I want like half red. And then the same thing for green and blue. They can range from 0 to 255. So if I say 255, 0, 0, that's basically saying that I want red because I'm putting red at full intensity, 255, and I'm putting green and blue at 0. Now, the cool thing is by using this sort of method of these red, green, and blue and combining them in different intensities, we can actually make a lot of different colors. So each color can have 256 different choices. 0 to 255 means 256 different choices, which means in total, we can make 256 times 256 times 256. We can make almost 17 million different colors just by combining these numbers in different combinations. All right, there's almost 17 million different ways we could set up these numbers to get unique colors that can be displayed on your computer screen. Now, I say unique, but actually, like, you would probably not be able to tell the difference between this right here, like 255, 254, 255, and 255, 254, 254. Like your eye would probably not pick up the difference between those two, but technically they are different colors. So again, I just wanted to use this block to kind of illustrate that point, and talk about this because you are going to be using this in the lab so that the user can actually paint in any color that they possibly want. But for right now, we're just going to make this button produce red. All right. Then I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to change the drop-down box from red to green. Now, again, green is always the middle piece in this. So I'm going to go 0, 255, 0, and that will give me full green with no red and no blue. And then I'm going to do that one more time. And I'm going to change this to 0, 0, 255, which gives me no red, no green, and full blue. All right. So now if I go back to my app and I hit the red button, you're going to see that now everything I do is in red. If I go and switch that to the green button, everything I do is now in green. And then if I hit the blue button, everything I do is now in blue. All right. So that's kind of how you can go and change the color that you're writing with on the canvas. All right. So that's sort of the introduction. All right. That's kind of introducing you to the canvas and getting you started. What you're going to be doing in the lab is basically making a more advanced version of this app. So you're going to take what we just did here and you're going to build on top of it. So let me actually load up sort of what the finished product looks like. Now, this may crash my emulator, but it may not. It depends whether we get lucky or not. All right. Let's see if it crashes it or not. It's always like a 50-50 shot when you switch projects. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If you don't do anything, it's more likely to work if you just kind of patiently sit there. But even that's no guarantee. Is it going to work? The anticipation is killing me. If it doesn't work, I'll just pause it and restart. Oh, there we go. All right, so this is what your final version is going to look like. All right. Now, yours might look different than this. You don't have to set it up the same way, but it still has the dots. It still has the lines. It still has red, green, and blue. But now we have this custom button, which as I change the sliders, you're going to notice that my button is changing colors. Now, your button doesn't actually have to change colors. That's like an added feature that you can put in. But what it should do is that when you click it, it will adopt that color and then let you draw on the canvas in that color. Now, if I change the sliders, let's say I do this and get a purple color, it doesn't automatically change. I would have to click the button again, and then it'll change to that new color. All right. There's also an increase button, which makes my which can make my dots larger or smaller. And also there's limits on this. So you'll notice that if I keep hitting it, my app will warn me that I'm at the minimum dot size. All right, so it's going to be able to change the size of the dots. And then last but not least, there's going to be what I call the Bob Ross button. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with Bob Ross. If you're not, I've attached another video to this assignment so that you can do a little research on him. But he was a painter on like a PBS show. And he would make these like landscape paintings. So after you've done everything that you want to do, you're going to click the Bob Ross button, and it's going to finish off the painting. So let me click the Bob Ross button. And there you go. That's my finished painting. Isn't it beautiful? And then if I click it again, it'll give me a new painting. And if I click it again, it clears it out. All right. So each time I click on it, it sort of rotates the painting, and then eventually it clears it out. So this is sort of what you're building towards. It's not going to be exactly like this. Your layout might be different. You're actually going to rotate between 3 pictures instead of 2 pictures. But it's the same general idea. All right. We've got the part that we built together, red, green, blue, and clear. You're going to be adding this custom button. You're going to be adding increase and decrease. You're going to be adding these sliders. And then you're going to be adding the Bob Ross button. All right. So that should give you enough to get started. Again, the lab document is with the assignment. So best of luck. And if you have any questions, just let me know. All right. Have a great day.